My name is Faven Zahaye. I'm the founder and CEO of Jaka Origins.
My name is Fikayo Durosimieti. I lead the team at a company called 2Note.
My name is Carl Nchite. I work with a company called Catalyze You.
My name is Kelvin Umechukwu. I am the co-founder and CEO of Bumper.
My name is Leona De Beer. I am the founder and CEO of Wafunda.
My name is Sefa Ikiato, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Suppliers.
So in the early days of venture building, I found that the types, let me start again. Okay. In the early days of venture building, I wanted to solve for what type of business model is best suited in connecting supply chain kind of stakeholders with end consumers. I really saw the value in being able to understand what are the challenges that farmers face, how do you create more value for farmers, and then how do you ensure that the end customer also appreciates the story of how a product is crafted, where it comes from, and its origin, source, and story, because that's how I believe that you have ultimately a higher chance of really locking in the right types of customers that believe in conscious consumerism.
Been some changes, as is always the case with startups. Early days of Catalyze You, we were looking to vet, train, and place Africa's leading non-tech talent at global companies. And the opportunity that we saw was that in the next decade or so, Africa will add around 800 million youth to the workforce. We contrast this to the rest of the world, specifically developed markets, United States, where we are right now, Europe and China, India included there, all decrease the global workforce or decrease their global workforce by around 30 million, according to McKinsey. And so we saw really the next frontier here in Africa, and we wanted to take talent from the continent, skilled talent, because in many cases we have at the same level, if not higher, talent, and provide these candidates from Africa opportunities in different jobs across the rest of the world, whether it be the States, the UK, the rest of Europe. And so that's what we wanted to do.
Figuring out the business model that we needed for solving this problem was very interesting, because before we started, we did not even know any other businesses doing subscription model. But we believed that subscription model was the right one, because before Bumper, if a business owner wanted to get a website, they would need to pay a huge sum of money to developers, and then continue to pay them for hosting, domain names, some technical things that they cannot do, and so they needed that person to continue to manage it for them. But for us, we realized that we didn't want them to commit so much upfront. It is better that the money is sort of amortized, through the year or through multiple years. So they are paying it in bits, but then they are getting the value even from day one. So that's why we decided to go with.
I think as a social impact enterprise, we always have this challenge between impact and profitability. How can we provide the biggest form of impact for the most people in our market, while making sure that the business becomes commercially viable and sustainable? And it's not something that I feel like we have solved for completely yet. One of the things that we've done or tried to do is diversify our sources of income. The way that our business is structured and set up is the for-profit is owned by the non-profit, and this really allows us to tap into a wide range of investments, from things like catalytic grant, technical grants, donations, all the way through to commercial financing in the form of debt financing or equity financing. So we've started really looking at the business in a way that is really giving us avenues to different kinds of funding, because our mandate is dual. It is both being an education financing business that makes sense for the market in South Africa, but also a business that puts impact at the forefront.
I mean, this is a very good question. In the beginning, I talked about how we've shifted from a B2C model to a B2B model, and it's basically for that exact reason, right? Understanding your personas, your customers very well is very important. I think it's important to know whether, if you're dealing with B2B businesses, whether you've got a end client or a client that you're solving for. That changes how you price a product. I would say one of my investors has said something very important when it comes to pricing, and that is it's very hard to go up after you've begun an engagement with a client. And so I think that it's really important to do your best to know your value, the value that your product brings, and price accordingly. In the beginning, you'll find yourself offering significant discounts, and that's okay. But it's a lot harder to start really low, charging full price, but it being very low, and to scale that. So I think that context, I love a good sale, right? And I think other people do that as well. And so if you start with a nice discount on the value that you're providing, you often are able to penetrate markets a lot easier. And then, as I've said already, things always change. So your business model will change. Your pricing structure will change. You need to look at the cards that you have at the present moment and play those.
So when it comes to pricing on the African continent, especially pertaining to our business, I think it was relatively simple for us. We were taking a process that, had traditionally been performed offline and taking it online. In doing that, you don't really want to disrupt from a pricing perspective. We felt it was important to maintain the same pricing standards. Plus, based on the provisions of the law around our sector, our little niche, they're like pricing thresholds, right? So that's really what guides us when it comes to pricing. However, on the flip side, because we have customers from all over the world who are trying to gain access to our services, we then have to think about how we price for foreign customers, right? We know that there's a standard price that Nigerians would pay for our service, notarization, connecting with a document authenticator. But when you're abroad, it's a completely different ballgame, and we can charge, with a little bit more of a margin, considering the fact that we are saving you the cost of logistics for the service. So we think about local price plus additional margin, and that's basically how we do it.
So in terms of cultural preferences of African consumers, the way we think about it first is we build our products from consumer insights, regardless of cultural preferences. For instance, a mom and pop store is not interested in the sophistication of an interest rate where you say the interest rate is going to be, for instance, 30% per annum, prorated on a 30-day basis. It's a lot of talk when you talk about the interest rate in terms of the percentages. So if we're giving out a loan for someone who's taking $1,000, if what they have to pay back is $1,050, then we keep it that simple to them, right? Because from our insight, they're not interested in the big terminologies and lingua that finance people use. They want to know how long they're going to have the money, and they want to know when it's time to pay back, what's the amount they have to pay. So we keep it that simple to them. We're thinking of expanding to the northern side of Nigeria, where there's a large population of Muslims. And one of the things we are going to introduce at that point will be Islamic financing, where there's more of profit sharing than having an interest rate. So that would be one way that we would infuse the cultural preferences in our product, yes.
When we design products in our business in South Africa, we always design it with the end user in mind, and we use a method called human-centric design thinking. So ultimately what that means is when we design, we bring the potential end user, beneficiary, target audience into the room with us. So we have had many adaptations since the beginning of our product to where we are now. And we've done that through making sure that we have a group that is what we call the ambassador group, which represents our actual users. They're in the room and they go through everything that we do, from contracting to the branding to how the product lives. And we have touch points with these with these ambassadors across the journey, and we check in with them when we need to make sure that our product is really, really fit for the person that uses at the end, and that we are challenging our assumptions as we go.
Yes, the golden rule of pricing. Keep increasing your prices until you start losing customers. That's the only way you know the true worth of the value you're providing to your customers.
When it comes to pricing and how we think about pricing within the business model, one piece of advice I wish I had received much earlier was around thinking through kind of like the fluctuations of the type of markets that we're in. And so we're really in the business of agroforestry, not only kind of natural products, but also in working in very complex and dynamic ecosystems and environments. And part of that requires us to really think ahead at the unpredictability of what comes with climate change and deforestation and all these other things around our environment. And we have a responsibility to work around driving impact in the right way. And that also comes at a cost. And one of the things that we've had to do in the last, I would say, year and a half is really thinking through and adjusting our pricing to take into consideration some of those fluctuations that we might not necessarily be able to pinpoint ahead of time, but in the larger goal of creating stability across product pricing to ensure that we build that in earlier on instead of waiting until that inflection point. And so a very thoughtful and deliberate process is now unraveling. And so what I would say to any other founders or entrepreneurs who are looking to start their business is to really think through what are the biggest either challenges or unforeseen factors that will affect the pricing of products, and how early on can you start building some piece of that as you're creating and evolving and doing iterations.